Once again, it is time for our bi-monthly reply to the bold Linux man, and this time, it's about Mr. DT not understanding the value of a system tray and why so many users want to use one. Now, I do want to make one thing very clear. I do not care if DT or anybody else does not want to use a system tray, wants to use 20 of them. It is completely inconsequential. It is your system, run it however you want. However, I do take issue with calling such a useful feature flat out pointless. So then, let's get started.
Because I do think, in a lot of ways, one of the things that holds Linux back is really poor UX, user experience, and I do think the system tray is one of those things that we need to work on a little bit. Let me switch over to...
I will agree that Linux UX is kind of a grab bag mess of a situation, and this is sort of natural of the fact that we have a lot of developers and not a lot of designers, and oftentimes a developer, they develop things in a way that makes sense for them, but not for other people. There are DEs nowadays like Gnome, like Plasma, like Elementary, that are working really hard to do consistency within their own environment. But we're not Windows, we're not macOS, there isn't this single point of truth over how a native interface should look. So it naturally leads to this mess between different desktops. What I won't agree with is the Systray is part of this problem, because the Systray also exists on Windows and macOS, and for the most part, works the same way. Now, if you've ever wondered why I do these videos with notes and sometimes look slightly away from the camera, this next part is why.
Because these applications originally were meant to be just icons that were indicators of a system state. For example, if I go back to my Systray, this is the network manager icon. That particular icon is letting me know that right now I'm connected to the internet. It's letting me know my Ethernet connection is working. Now, if for some reason the internet...
Fair enough. Let's jump ahead.
Now, on my system, I don't have a ton of these system tray applications, but I do have a couple of them that seem pointless. Here is a great example. This last icon here, that is the OBS icon, and it's got the little red dot on it letting me know right now OBS is recording video. Well, why do I need that OBS icon there?
DT! Recording your screen is important system state. What if you thought you stopped recording and you were done for the day, so you go to your favorite big titty anime cat girl website, and all of a sudden, whoa, I'm still recording. What if you weren't just recording? What if you were also live streaming? That seems like a pretty big issue, and I kinda want OBS to make sure it tells me I am recording. Now, to be fair, he does say this next.
I've got the OBS window open. I opened OBS. I pressed start recording. I know it's recording, right? I don't need the icon there. That icon for OBS in the system tray serves absolutely no purpose. I've been doing this YouTube channel now for...
I can understand that if you have a multi-monitor configuration and you press the start recording button. When I start recording, you probably noticed this from the fact that I move my hand around my keyboard. I have hotkeys. I have hotkeys not only for changing what scene I'm on, but also for starting and stopping recording. So most of the time when I do so, I don't actually look at my OBS window. I just look at the icon, and the icon says I'm recording. But what about people that don't have a multi-monitor configuration who also use hotkeys, where they have OBS on another workspace? They actually won't see OBS when they start recording.
6 years, and I've used OBS almost entirely that whole time. I've recorded probably 14, maybe 1,500 videos using OBS. Never once, never a single time have I ever went to the system tray to do anything with OBS to see if I was recording or to...
And I've probably recorded about as many videos as well, and I use it every single day. So, this argument doesn't matter. Also, if you don't like the system tray, right? I'm going to show you something crazy. We can go into our OBS settings, okay? This window right here. We can go in the general section, scroll down to the bit that says system tray, and click this button. And then the system tray doesn't have an icon. Anyway, moving on from that, and I should probably be on the other side.
Nextcloud icon that's right next to it is one that's kind of iffy because it's letting me know that my Nextcloud server right now is synced to the local folders here on this computer. That's why it has the checkbox. I would say that's probably useful. That's more of what the application with the Systray is actually designed for. But
no, it's pointless because you can just open up one of the Nextcloud clients and that'll tell you if your files are synced. Like, this argument works the same in both directions. I don't understand how these two situations are different. If you understand, please do let me know. I was trying to work it out to try to give like a balanced take here, but I just don't understand the point he's trying to make here.
But some examples of some really bad Systray applications would be things like Discord, Slack, Zoom, Spotify, various multimedia players, whether you're playing audio or video, chat clients, things like that, that when you close them out, they don't really close. They just hide themselves in the Systray. Some of these applications are almost kind of devious, the way they hide themselves from the user. I'm still running in the background, but I don't want you to know about it. I'm just gonna, sneak over here into the Systray. I'm still running, you just won't know about. None of these apps.
Do you know how you know it's still running? Because it's in the Systray. Right, okay. If that's devious, let's go and open up BTOP. Look at all of these devious processes running. A lot of these processes I never opened. Most of these don't even have a GUI. I don't know what some of these things do. What is Migration 6? What is Kworker? I have no idea. Everything on my system is devious. Now, for anyone who doesn't understand humor, that was a joke. Let's talk about the chat client, Steam, and all of these other applications that don't close when you close them. I can't speak for every single one of them, but when it comes to Discord, when it comes to Steam, I like the fact that when you close the window, the application doesn't close. Instead, it goes into this minimized, daemonized form, whatever you want to call it. These applications have a really long startup time. When you open them, they have their own internal updater that runs every single time. And I don't want to deal with that. I frequently go back to Discord, and I don't want to have a window open all of the time on one of my desktops. I want to just be able to reopen the window when I want to see it, close the window, and then let it do its thing in the background. And the exact same is true for Steam. What I will say is every application that does this should have the option where if you close the window, the application closes. I'm pretty sure Discord and Steam do, but I can't speak for everything else. It's going to be a case-by-case basis, but I think it should be everything.
None of these applications, things like Discord and Zoom, all these various Electron apps and things that often minimize to the Systray, they give you no information in that Systray applet, right? The only thing they sit there for is every now and then you'll get a notification like somebody, blah, 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 Joe Bob just sent you a new message on Discord. Okay, well, if it's going to pop up in a notification window on my screen, I'm going to get the notification message. Why do I need that icon sitting?
Two things. One, it tells you the application is running in the background. Two, you can click on the icon to open the window. Yes, you can also click on the notification, but maybe you see the notification and you're like, I'll deal with it later. And then like 5-10 minutes later, you're like, oh, click on the icon, go to the thing, and then you deal with it. This may not be the way that DT likes to work, but I do this on a fairly regular basis.
I only started adding system trays to some of my various window manager configurations is because some of you guys that were using my configurations wanted Systrays. So I added Systrays to some of these window managers like Xmonad and Qtile and things like that. It's mainly for you guys, your convenience.
Well, if that's the case, let's go and see why DT's audience likes Systrays. It depends on the app and the user. I have certain apps that use the system tray for frequently maybe just at a glance information or quickly looking at some stats without opening the app. Many Systray icons have quick menus for a lot of their functionalities. For example, all the major game launchers like Steam and Battle.net. I use them all the time. It is very easy and fast to right-click the icon and click on the game I want to play. I do not need to open the full application and wait for it to load, then find the game. Systrays are absolutely necessary to my workflow. Anything that needs to stay running in the background needs to have a tray icon. What is annoying is there isn't a standard behavior that every app follows. It's just a mess. Discord is a number one here with their stupidly glitchy right-click menu. I was using Wi-Fi for a while when it didn't have a Systray plugin and it drove me nuts. Network status, volume icon, and Bluetooth is usually all I need. Now Wi-Fi has a Systray plugin, so all is good. Without Systray, how do I interact with apps that don't have a window like Redshift, Nmapplet, Udisky? Still furious at Gnome for removing the system tray. I still use old Windows programs via Wine and certain Linux ones that just plain don't close unless you exit it via the tray. But in Gnome, they just keep running. Now this is not a universal opinion. Not every single person finds a Systray useful, but clearly a lot of people do.
One of the open source software projects that I think has the right idea about Systrays is actually the Gnome project, because, I've been very critical of Gnome over a lot of things that they've done with their desktop environment, but one thing that they have done right is they've kind of gotten rid of the Systray. They have this quick settings menu here in the latest Gnome 45 that includes...
Okay, let's talk about Gnome and the Systray, because I often see misunderstanding about what actually happened here. Gnome is not entirely opposed to the Systray. What they are opposed to is the current implementation. So this is a blog post by Alan Day from back when the Systray was actually removed. From Gnome 3.26, we are therefore planning not to show status icons in Gnome Shell by default. We feel that long term this change will enable us to provide a better experience for our users. We do recognize that people are using status icons today and that some will continue to want to use them. That's absolutely fine, and our decision to stop showing status icons by default is in no way a negative judgment on this. If you want or need to continue using status icons, use the extension. So, let's scroll down just a little bit more to the why section. As a starting point, it's worth pointing out that status icons are pretty old. The first version of the spec is dated from April 2002, which means that it predated GNOME 2.0. They had balloon messages. It perhaps goes without saying, but status icons are something that we inherited, rather than something that was designed as part of the overall experience. Whilst being part of Free Desktop, this spec came out of the KDE project and was based on what Windows XP was doing at the time with their notification area, which is basically the Windows Systray. This was, and still is, a hacky and cobbled together solution that works. But GNOME feels like they can do it better. Also, at the time, GNOME's intention was for them to be transient notifications, not permanent additions the entire time the application is running. But why don't we want them anymore? There are some specific issues with the status icons, which I'll get onto, but the main reasons relate to A, the existence of better APIs, and B, how they align with GNOME's wider design philosophy and goals, and the following are some of these. 1. A purposeful API. Basically, status icons right now are sort of a catch-all for everything. They can be a quick launcher, they can be a status icon for an application, they can be the only way you control an application. But it might be better to have individual APIs to deal with those individual problems. Secondly, application versus status. Status icons and system status are both concerned with status, and there is therefore a natural pull to merge the two. This is how status icons are typically presented on other platforms. However, we feel that this would dilute the experience as a whole, since it would introduce a lack of clarity over what belongs to what. The influence of this kind of distinction is a subtle but pervasive one. 3. User control. Users don't opt into status icons. They don't neatly stay out of the way when they're not wanted, as with notifications. They don't reflect a particular type of user activity, like Empress integration. In essence, they take control from the user. That is a hilarious thing to say in context of GNOME, but that's another video. And 4. Accessible click targets. Status icons are small. They're hard to click if you have trouble controlling a mouse. My feeling is we've actually been using status icons as a crutch for far too long, that they've been used to fill gaps in our APIs, gaps which are now thankfully getting filled, and that moving away from them will help us extend application integration in some exciting directions. I'm sure it is getting filled. I'm sure all these years later, all of the problems have been dealt with, and we no longer see people complaining about broken status icons. Never happens. Once again, they are not opposed to having persistent application status. They were opposed to the way they were currently being done. Anyway, we're watching a DT video, so let's get back to that.
One of the things that Ubuntu does with the Gnome desktop environment is they actually do have a system tray extension that is installed. There is an area out to the side of the standard.
Jump ahead a little bit.
The icon sits right there.
There you go, up in the top right corner. Now, there is a good reason why they have it. They have it because users expect it to be there. If you've come over from Windows, if you come over from macOS, you expect there to be a systray. If there isn't one, that's a bug. Yes, it's intended designed by Gnome, but to the user, it's not what they expect their system to be doing. I kinda wish Gnome approached adding new features the same way that Final Fantasy XIV looks at mods, where if a bunch of people are using a mod, this is something they will never acknowledge, but they keep doing it. If a bunch of people are using a mod, just add the feature into the game. If a bunch of people are using an extension for Gnome that adds a system tray that's dash to dock or any of these other really popular extensions, there might be a deficiency in the way your desktop is currently designed. Plugins should never go away, but users shouldn't feel like a plugin is required to make your desktop usable. Now, I don't think GNOME devs should completely throw away their vision, but if a bunch of users disagree with the course it's going, maybe it might be worth doing a bit of course correction.
This system tray area should not act as an area for quick launchers. It makes no sense. Again, it's confusing for the user.
But it's not, though, because Windows and macOS also do it. If they've used a desktop operating system, they know what the system tray does.
Even for me, I've been using Linux forever, and it still confuses me when I...
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe DT's just out of touch with how other people use a computer. Because it's not that weird if you come from other operating systems.
I install an application that, for whatever reason, decides to throw itself in the systray area. One of the things that really confuses me is like clipboard managers, clipboard programs. Why do I need an application for my clipboard sitting in the system tray? I can actually have a quick launcher.
Do we need to replay the clip again?
Again, I think GNOME is going in the right direction. By default, they don't have a systray.
True.
And of course, you can always add one via an extension, but I think that's smart is, hey, we're the most popular desktop environment on Linux. We don't have a systray. So all of you guys that are throwing your applications into the system tray area, stop doing that. Because honestly, it's confusing for the users.
I'm not playing the clip again. I'm not playing the clip again. This makes sense in a vacuum where Linux is the only operating system or Linux is the biggest operating system. But a lot of the applications that make use of a systray icon are not Linux only. Discord, Slack, Steam, Windows and macOS have a systray. And it doesn't matter what GNOME does, because they're just going to keep using a systray because that's a feature that desktop operating systems have. And if GNOME doesn't want to have a systray by default, that's fine. They can accept the bug reports because they're never going to end. Because to the user, the desktop looks broken. And I made a very similar argument when I was talking about the multi-window applications with Wayland protocols. If you don't support what people expect to see on a desktop operating system, it doesn't matter if you have this, like, idealized way of how it's supposed to work. People are going to think it's buggy if it doesn't work the way they expect it to.
But I don't need any of that, right? If I want to run a program, I'm going to launch dmenu or Rovi or some run launcher or the Gnome dash or whatever, if I'm using Gnome for whatever reason on a machine, I'm going to use a run launcher to launch everything, right? And I find that less confusing because...
And that's okay. That's totally okay if you find it less confusing. Most of the time, I will load applications in the same way as well. But oftentimes, I will click the Discord icon to open up the Discord window. And I'm not alone here. Like, this is a normal way that people will interact with this application.
And when I close it, I expect those windows to close the same way, as in, when I close the program, it needs to actually close. It doesn't need to still secretly run in the background and throw up.
Still not a secret.
Icon in the system tray. No. Again, that's just poor design. But that's enough of...
What I will say, I said this earlier, if an application does have the ability to quit to the system tray, it should have a toggle somewhere inside of it to do a quit when you close the window. This is the one part of the video I will agree with. I don't agree that it should always be like this, but I will agree that it should be configurable. So, I hope you enjoyed this. I don't know how long it is. It's probably twice as long as DT's video. When I saw this last night, I was like, oh my god, why are you doing this to me? I don't want to make another video this week, but like, why are you talking about system trays? Like, outside of Gnome, everybody just accepts a system tray is a useful thing. There's no argument about it. There's nothing like that. A lot of people on Gnome are using Ubuntu, and they don't even think about it because of the extension. It's just vanilla Gnome, and I wonder how many of those people also install the extension. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on Systrays down below. As I said at the start, if you don't want to use a Systray, I don't think you should need to do so. Don't come at me arguing that Systrays are pointless and they're evil and they're devious or whatever. Fine. But I like them, and I'm going to keep using them. So, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you like this video, go like the video. And if you like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, Scrubs, Liberapay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and one day my head might be as shiny as DT's.